Hello and welcome back to the channel, N-Gauge on a Shelf. This is a video about servicing because what I've got in my hand here is probably going to need a service. Now if you remember, I bought a Britannia from the 1980s in Brunswick Green and I got it going, but I wasn't happy with it, so I had to give the commutator a really good clean. And then it ran really well. So I sold it, made about 20 quid on it. I then bought a light green one from the 1970s that was a non-runner. I got that for £23 off eBay. And that was including the postage and packing. And of course I gave it a real good service and a clean. Someone had pulled it to bits and put it back together wrong. And I got it running really well. Would do a slow crawl, the whole 9 yards. It was superb. So I sold it and made about £50 on that, which I've spent elsewhere on here. But I really wanted a Minitrix Britannia. So I bought another one. Yeah, this one cost me £45. It's supposed to be a good runner in both directions. It came with two Minitrix coaches, which were so filthy I think they'd been sat out on a layout for a couple of years. So I've cleaned them up with hot soapy water and they look pretty decent now that they're clean. You wouldn't believe how many cotton buds I got through cleaning them up. So I've had this for about 3 weeks now. And I haven't run it yet because I've been doing so much on here. As you can see, we've got some illumination. So this is its first run. Now I have had it out the box and I have had the body off just to have a look at it. There's a couple of scratches near the screw holding the body on, which I hadn't noticed in the photographs. In fact, I think the photograph was simply that. I don't think there was any photographs of it outside the box. So my own fault for not spotting that. So the chances are this will go back onto eBay because it's not as perfect as I like. Now the commutator I've had a quick look at. There's a bit of dirt on that. The tender wheels are dirty, so they need cleaning because they provide electrical contact as well. So should we give it its first run? And then we'll give it a service and I'll talk you through what I do. Well, I wasn't expecting much, but I was expecting more than that from something that runs well in both directions. So it's another on the bench, strip it down, clean it, lube it. I'll show you what I do. If I can, it's so difficult. I might end up with a camera between my legs again, but we'll do our best. See you down on the bench. Well, here we are on the bench, and it goes without saying that I'm going to have some trouble doing this with a tripod between my legs. I've got contact cleaner, grease, screwdriver, battery, oil, and of course cotton buds. Now I like these cotton buds because they've got a pointy end which helps you get into small places. And the one thing that these have is very small places. Now the other thing I have is my magnifying light. And at some point during this, I'm probably going to have to look through it, so it's going to compromise the video. Now, the one thing I would say about these is don't undo any screws until you know what's going to happen. And the reason I say this is very hard to do because I'm looking through the camera. But you've got 2 screws here holding on the under tray. Now on Minitrix models, what you get is a drive that drives a pair of wheels, and then there's a cog that drives that pair of wheels and a cog that drives that pair of wheels. You take off the under tray and the cogs go everywhere. And then it is very difficult to get these back in properly with the quartering correct. What tends to happen is you get that one in, you get that one in, and then as you struggle to get the last one in, you get it one tooth out. And when it's one tooth out, it will run, but it'll put a lot of strain on the motor and inevitably burn your motor out. The other thing is, there are very slim copper pickups down the side of the wheels here. Further inboard, you can't see them from here. So while you're fighting to get these sets of wheels back in, what you don't realise is that you're bending the copper pickups. And then once you've got it in, you go, oh my goodness, what have I done? And you've got to start again. Now, as you can see in the tender, we've got pickups here. And these sets of wheels are insulated. So you must remember when you take these out to put them back in the correct way round. So all of these wheels somehow play a part in passing electricity to the motor and then to the brushes, to the commutator, and make everything turn. So if any of this is dirty, you really need to clean it. So we'll try the battery test on the rear wheels. This is so hard to do looking in the back of the camera. Yeah. So as you can see, the tender wheels provide power. So it seems to be running okay. It just didn't want to do it on the track. Let's start the cleaning process. So there's only one screw. Right, there's only one screw that holds the body on. That's there. There's a couple of scratches either side of it, so somebody's been in there before. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this looking through the back of the camera. Hang on a moment. So once we've got that one screw undone, the body very simply lifts off. And this is the weight that helps to provide traction, because this body is plastic. So in here we've got the brushes here. There's the worm drive. That all looks pretty dry. I can't quite see the pickups, but the pickups run down the side here to the wheels. And then in the motor, there's the commutator. As you can see, it is not spotless. So this motor's got to come out. That's my first priority. And the way it comes out is these 2 screws on the back. So now we got those 2 screws out, the motor simply pushes out. This is going to be difficult doing this through the back of the camera. Just need a little bit of slack on that wiring. And now the motor's free, and we can see that there isn't a great deal of copper. That should be shite and briny. Sorry, bright and shiny. And we need to clean it. Now you can take the brushes out. The brushes are held in by this spring clip. What I can tell you is it's very easy to get the brushes out. What I can also tell you is it can be a nightmare to get them back in. So we need to do a bit of cleaning. So the very simple way of doing this is the WD-40 contact cleaner. Give it a good spray in there. Get in here with the pointy end, clean it, rotate, clean, rotate, and repeat until that commutator looks a little less that colour and an awful lot more that colour. Now I'm going to have to do this underneath my light up there, so you're not going to see me actually scrubbing away with this, you'll just see the result. One thing I would say, that contact cleaner does not do paintwork very good. So I'm going to cover that when I'm spraying, just to make sure I don't get any on my paintwork. Well, the end result is a commutator that looks a hell of a lot better than it did. And they do get dirty because of the arcing. Even though there are components in here to stop it arcing, it will still arc. There's some of the filth I got out of it. And there's some more of the filth that I got out of it. Now before we put the motor back in, without the motor in, the wheels are free. So this is a perfect time to actually clean them. To clean these wheels. Not forgetting to clean these wheels. Take that screw out. Then you can clean these wheels. Then we can pop these wheels out and clean those contacts as well. And clean the wheels. But because they are insulated, best to take one out at a time, and then you can look at the other one to see which end is the insulated end and which end isn't. So all of this lot needs cleaning up. And we do the same thing. We take a cotton bud, we soak it with the contact cleaner, and then we clean the wheels as we rotate them. Actually, they're not too bad. But you can see here how there's gearing between each of the wheels. So if you take off the under tray, you risk getting all of that out of sequence. Well, that was fun cleaning all those wheels. I think you can see how much filth there was on them. When you consider the size of the contact patch between here and the track, and then these small pickups, and the small pickups which rest on the rear of these wheels, and then the small brushes which have got absolutely loads of meat on them, and the small commutator, not absolutely spotless, but it's a hell of a lot better, 95% better. When you consider all of the contact patches that you've got with the track and how small they are, you'll appreciate how a few volts DC will not flow through dirt. Assuming that nothing here in the conrods is broken, if your loco isn't running very well, 98% of the problem is going to be dirt, which is very easy to clean away. It's quite rare that one of these is so dry, lubricant-wise, that it's going to cause you problems. But the last thing we're going to do, put this motor back where it belongs, and then we're going to lubricate this. And what we put on is quite a small amount. Before I move on to lubrication, there's just one little thing I want to point out to you, and that's this little sprung wire that goes up against the pivot on the drawbar for the tender. Now, in the later Minitrix models, you will find that there are two wires between the tender and the loco. On the older ones, there's one wire, and the other connection through the chassis is with this sprung wire. So if you undo this screw and take the tender off, this sprung wire is going to spring this side. And then when you put the tender back on, it's not making contact with the drawbar. So if you do take a tender off, make sure you get this sprung wire so that it is sprung firmly against the drawbar screw rather than swinging in the breeze. Right, lubrication. Motor's back in place now. So I'm going to grease the worm drive, and then everything else I'm going to use my little oil dropper for. So all of these gears I'm going to lubricate with some oil, and then tiny drops of oil on our moving parts, and I do mean tiny. When I get these from, there's another view of the gears. When I buy these from eBay, quite often, this whole thing is absolutely dripping. And then I got to clean it off. This one, fairly dry. So I'm using silicone grease. And I just get some on the end of my screwdriver and cover the worm drive. Now it looks like quite a large blob, but it will work its way round the worm drive and round this primary red cog. The rest of it is one of these oil pencils. This one is a fishing one. So you just got a needle, and with the needle, do you know what, this is so difficult to do. You just get a little drop. You can see it there against my finger. So that's all I'm going to do, is little drops like that. In fact, that's a bit too big. Well, everything's had a drop where it needs a drop. What I can say is this particular one was very filthy. Last job is to replace the body. I don't know if you can see those scratches. It's just there. Do you know what? If this runs as sweet as a nut, because the writing is in such good condition, This one will go in the collection. I'll see you upstairs in the bedroom.